A lot of guys message me asking about Paraguay all the time. They see the low cost of living, the residency stuff, the freedom, the friendliness of the people, the slower pace of life, and they think that it sounds like the perfect escape from their home country in the West. But after living here for over 18 months, I can tell you something pretty interesting. Americans are actually one of the smallest and fewest groups of people that I've met here in Asuncion. I met way more Canadians, Australians, Dutch, Brits, Germans, Spaniards, people from different countries in Europe. And it made me start asking why. Because on paper, Paraguay seems like a great place for Americans to move to as well. But the truth is, most Americans, and honestly most Westerners in general, probably wouldn't last here long term. So in this video, I'm gonna break down why I think most Americans don't last long term in Paraguay. And if you're an American seriously considering a move here, this video might save you from making the wrong move for the wrong reasons. And by the way, if you're new here, I'm Alex. I left the US in 2022, and I've been living full-time here in South America since then through earning income online, and now I help other men do the same. So let's dive into the video. This is gonna be 6 honest points that Americans should know about before making the move to Paraguay. So point number 1 is Paraguay is pretty far away from the United States. And I think a lot of Americans, even Canadians, they underestimate just how far Paraguay actually is when you compare it to other countries around South America and the Latin world. For instance, you can get a lot of direct flights from Colombia, Mexico, parts of Central America, plenty of other countries. Paraguay is not one of them, at least not yet. And honestly, that can be a hassle because most Americans, I think, still go back to America, right? They still go back for either family, for friends, for maybe investments. Maybe they have a business back home. Me, for example, I still go back every year, mainly to visit family and friends and nieces and nephews, that sort of thing. But if I had like a business back home, if I had investments back there or properties, that would mean I'd have to go back a lot more often. And getting to the United States from Paraguay and vice versa can be a hassle. You know, most flights are at least 18 to 24 hours one way, and you usually need multiple flights to get there, right? You'll have layovers that can last hours depending if you're in Bogota or Lima, and it could take a full day travel just to get there one way. And at first, you know, you might not care about this because you're super excited, you know, everything's new, you're focused on the freedom aspect, getting your residency, getting your cedula, experiencing low cost of living, maybe a better dating life, you know, you like the adventure of it all. But after a few years, it starts to kick in a little more. One example from me is I have a group of friends. We usually get together every single year in Miami. I talked about Adam a little bit on this channel. Adam was the friend that inspired me to really travel and explore outside the US because he was the first one to go to Colombia out of my group of friends. And Adam's now based in Miami, which is a good middle point because I have a lot of friends that live in like the Northeast. I'm from Boston originally. Some friends are around the country even, and I'm over here in South America. So Miami is a great place to visit every single year. A lot of friends from the Northeast want to escape the wintertime and, you know, have a nice vacation with their buddies in Florida. And that's what we've been doing every single year. And every time I've been in Colombia, for example, I've been able to make that trip because we usually do like a long weekend, maybe like a Thursday to Sunday type thing. And being in Colombia, I can get a straight shot from either Medellin or Bogota, Cartagena, directly to Miami, really easy. And it justifies me being able to spend just a few days in Miami and come right back to Colombia. But being here in Paraguay makes that trip almost impossible. Like, think about it. If I got to travel 18 hours one way to get to Miami from Paraguay, let's say I leave on a Thursday, boom, that Thursday's gone. I can't work that day. I can't do anything that day. I get there maybe the next day. I'm probably tired from that travel. I just want to chill for a little while. And then I'm there for maybe 2-3 days and I got to come right back to Paraguay, another 18-hour flight and do it all over again, right? Plus, it's not a cheap flight either. So last year, for example, I wasn't able to make that Miami trip. But if I was in Colombia, I definitely would have made it because it's a direct flight. It's easy. It's no problem. It also makes it more difficult for your friends and your family to come visit you in Paraguay because they themselves, you know, they might spend maybe less than a week here, and it's tough to justify that much travel time to visit for that short period of time. So you're probably gonna miss out on seeing family and friends, close friends, back home as often. You know, it's gonna be tougher to go back to check on your businesses or your investments or your assets back home. And that convenience, I think, matters more than what most people think. And as I mentioned, it's also harder for people to come visit you. You know, your parents, your siblings probably aren't going to be casually flying to Paraguay for a weekend. And over time, that distance starts to create maybe some emotional distance between you and your friends and your family, assuming you're not talking over the phone or doing, you know, FaceTimes on a weekly basis. And this obviously applies to, you know, Canadians and really all Westerners outside of Paraguay. Paraguay is strategically located where it is pretty far from everything else, but I kind of like that too because you don't get the short-term travelers or tourists. I've talked talked about that in other videos. But with pros, there are cons, and this is a con being far away from the US, for those of you who still want to visit the US consistently. Point number 2 is you start missing people back in the US or your home country more than you expected that you would. This one surprised me personally. I think a lot of guys underestimate this before they leave. And I even did a video on this. If you look at my last video, I did an entire video on, me missing people back home, missing my family, missing big events, missing being an uncle even, right? At first, leaving the US and moving to a country like Paraguay, it feels exciting. You're escaping all the reasons you left your home country. Could be inflation, cost of living, woke culture, dating environment, weather, whatever it is for you, or a combination of all the above. When you finally experience something new that really is a good solution to all of those, you're having a good time and you're exploring. Maybe it's the first time you've been exploring in your entire life, or for a while, you haven't been able to explore or travel or experience different cultures, meet different people, and building a new life, meeting new women, making new friends that are more like-minded to you, think more about freedom and sovereignty, and work online. All that stuff is great, especially the first 1, 2, 3 years even. But after a few years, there are going to be moments where, or this can happen even sooner than a few years, there are going to be moments where you feel a little lost, or you feel a little disconnected. And especially if you're in your 30s like I am, right? You start noticing that your parents are aging. You start seeing them physically weaker, walking a little slower, needing more of your help, having less energy, and having more health issues as well. I told the story in the last video about my dad having cancer, which he luckily beat. But you start seeing real aging and real time passing by. And the realization you have is that they're not gonna be here forever. You never know when you're gonna get that call that, hey, maybe, mom's in the hospital, or dad had an accident, or whatever the case may be, right? Which I know happens to a lot of people here. Luckily, it hasn't happened to me, but one day I know I'm going to get some news like that, and it's going to suck. You also miss big moments in, your loved one's life. Like my brother just bought a house, and he's super excited about it. It's a beautiful home. He was showing me photos and everything, and he can't wait till I get there and I can stay with him now. You start seeing your nieces and your nephews growing up fast. In my last video I told the story of my niece Athena, who's super open and just tells me, whatever's on her mind, which I love. And I enjoy being Uncle A-Rod. And people's lives are moving on without you there. So I think this is easier for introverts like myself to handle, because I can be, away from people for, I think, longer than most people. And I don't need as much social interaction as much as maybe an extroverted person would. But eventually, I think this happens to a lot of people. Is you start missing people back home more than you expected. And a lot of times that alone could be a reason to maybe want to spend more time back home, maybe even go back to your home country. But point number 2 is, again, you might start missing people back home more than you expected. Point number 3 is loneliness can start to sneak up on you, and this has happened to me on my journey living here abroad, right? I think this one is important to talk about, especially for introverted guys, right? Guys that can literally work from home and not need to be around people all the time, and don't really initiate hitting people up, right? I'm lucky, like I have people out here that hit me up a lot, and all I need to do is just say yes and show up. But a lot of times as an introvert, you're going to have to cultivate your own social circle. You're going to have to go out and meet new people and be the one to initiate the going out and events and stuff like that, right? If you want a real social life out here. And I've definitely been guilty of this. Life can feel full for a period of time, right? If you're working remote, you're busy, like for me, for instance, I work full-time in sales. I build this passion project that I'm doing on YouTube, which is my business, focused on my fitness, my calisthenics. I have a good dating life. I have hobbies here with friends that I do. Your days are packed, but then slowly but surely, you might find yourself saying no to invitations, or you stop going out as much, or you stop initiating, get-together, or you stop showing up to the hobby you were doing, like with battle or boxing, and you slowly stop building male friendships. When you do that, your life starts to revolve around just working out, and women. And you don't notice it at first, but I've had this conversation with other guys as well. When you're making money doing your work, and you enjoy your work, and when you're busy with your work, you're busy with your fitness, and you have an active dating life, those 3 things alone can keep you like thinking that you're in a good spot, right? It's like life is good, life is awesome. And maybe you still have like 1 or 2 friends that you hang out with every now and then. But the wake up call happens when things go sideways, maybe with a girl, maybe with your job, maybe you hit a low point mentally, and you realize you don't actually have a tribe around you like maybe you thought you did. And that's where the loneliness can come in, where if you just have a group of guy friends and maybe things go sideways with a girl or with your job, you can still go to dinners, you can go to lunches, you can play sports with guy friends. That's gonna recalibrate like your emotional state, right? So that I think it's super important. A lot of guys don't talk about this. And loneliness abroad, keep in mind, you're far away from your home. You're far away from the close friends you grew up with, your siblings, your parents. These are emotional support systems that you no longer have. Yeah, you could talk on the phone, you could do some FaceTime, but that's not the same as being in person. And I'm guessing a lot of you are introverts like me. Maybe that's what attracts you to this channel, because I definitely lead more towards introversion. Yeah, I can turn on the extroversion pretty much whenever I want, but I definitely get my energy from being alone. And I enjoy being alone more than most people, I think. So introverts who only socialize when invited somewhere are especially vulnerable to this. And I think that guy friendships matter way more than what most people think. I think guy friendships are more important than dating life. And for most of my time here, I think I value dating more than friendships, but I'm starting to see that friendships are actually more valuable than dating. Because friendships, once you make a good friend, that's going to be a lifelong person that you'll probably hit up. You know, you don't break up with your friends like you do with girls, right? And the truth is, most relationships end. But the guy friendships, those ones last forever. You can go to a different country. You can be away for months or even years. Come back, meet each other, it's as if you never left. So again, even if your dating life is amazing, even if things are going really well at work, even if you're in amazing shape, you're feeling great, you still need people, you still need guy friends around you, you still need community, you still need brothers. This is very important to help with loneliness occasionally sneaking up on you. And speaking on dating, point number 4 is dating abroad is not always what guys think it is. You know, you always hear people talk about dating in South America or Southeast Asia or anywhere abroad is much better than the US. And although that's true, a lot of guys still get screwed in this area, okay? Because there's an other side to it that people don't talk about, especially if you don't speak good Spanish. You know, let's talk about the language barrier. If you don't speak the language very well, a lot of women are just not gonna really take you that seriously. Yeah, they'll go out with you. Yeah, there'll still be physical attraction. But outside of that, they don't really see you as anything like long-term. That's fine if you're just dating casually, right? And if you know the deal. But if you're someone who starts to like someone and you see yourself living there, you know, a lot of times these women just see you as the foreign guy. You're just someone to have fun with. And then they're probably dating someone locally or maybe another foreigner who speaks very good Spanish more seriously because there's more connection there. And this especially hits for older guys, right? Like guys in their 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, when I say older, I mean like over 50, but we'll just say guys 30s to 50s, maybe even 60s. You know, they finally meet a beautiful younger woman who genuinely likes them, right? There's generally attraction there. Let's say they even speak good Spanish, right? So there's a good connection there. There's good conversation. And they start to feel alive again, right? They're literally dating someone who is in her prime and it makes them feel like 10 years younger. And then one of two things happens. And I've seen this story, you know, a few times. You know, she starts asking him for money. She starts wanting to be taken care of financially, right? More like, what's in it for me? You know, I have this youth and beauty. You're in your 40s or 50s. Like, what can you do for me type energy? That happens a lot in South America, especially if you find her on like Tinder or some dating apps. That's why dating apps are not the best route, even though it does work. But number one, she could start asking you for money. This happened to a lot of guys and it just shocks them. They had no idea. Or even worse, they might find out that she's not only seeing other guys, but she's seeing other guys for money, right? Like sugar baby, sugar daddy relationships. That happens a lot here. If you're an older guy, if you're on Tinder in Paraguay and you're matching with girls in their 20s and you're over 40, chances are that girl in her 20s is wanting some type of financial incentive. And I've seen guys get shocked. And look, I'll even tell you a personal story that happened to me. So I was dating this girl. She was younger than I was. She was in her early 20s. This was last year. So I was 37, maybe a 15-year age gap. And we were seeing each other for several months, okay? We had a great, really since the first date, we just bonded. We had a really good connection. We had great chemistry. She was really intelligent for her age too, really wise for her age. We could talk about a lot of different topics. And obviously we were very attracted to each other as well. She was also really affectionate. She was appreciative. She would give me massages all the time. She would cut my toenails. She would do all types of little things that were very affectionate and cute, right? And then one day, I get a message on Instagram from a guy who looked much older than I was. I don't know how old he was. We'll say he was in maybe late 50s. And come to find out, this guy messaged me out of the blue about this girl because he was jealous of our relationship. It turns out that they had a financial arrangement where he was basically her sugar daddy. This girl was a sugar baby without me knowing. And what I realized was some of these younger women in these countries, not just Paraguay, other countries as well, a lot of times they support themselves in that way because they make pretty good money. They're able to have their own apartments. They're able to support themselves financially through sugar baby, sugar daddy relationships. And then they'll still have the other guy that they take more seriously, the guy that they really like, the guys that they don't ask anything for. They just like being around them. They just want something more long-term with that guy. But he'll never know that she's a sugar baby the whole time. And when I brought this to her attention, and by the way, this guy was very honest about everything, right? He told me everything that she told him. She told him stuff about me. So I knew that he was telling the truth, right? About him being a sugar daddy to her, because she would tell him stuff that no one else would know but her. And when I told her, hey, here's this guy sending me, I told her, here's a strange guy sending me messages about you. I just thought you should know. And she basically denied that she had no idea who that was, and she lied. And after that moment, I realized that even though she had all these other qualities, she lacked the basic like character of honesty. Now imagine a guy who already feels lonely, already feels disconnected. Maybe he's built a strong emotional attachment to this girl to where he thinks he wants to move her in. Some guys move girls in with them too, which is crazy. You know, that kind of situation can crush a man emotionally. And some guys never recover from that experience psychologically. A lot of times they might leave the country. So just let that be a lesson too when it comes to your dating life. Tread that lightly. Obviously, get to know someone really well. Ideally, get to know someone through social circle or through in person, because the apps aren't always the best. A lot of those girls, again, they might not have, they might not be looking for anything genuine if that's what you're looking for. If you're just looking for casual too, of course, that's cool too. I have no problem with that. But just be smart about it at the end of the day. Point number 5 is that Paraguay, and you hear this a lot, but Paraguay can feel slow or too boring. All right, especially if you don't have much going on, if you're not working on some type of project or business, or you're not building anything, that's where it can get boring a little bit, okay? Especially for certain personality types. If you're more extroverted, you like to go a lot, you need a lot of nightlife. Paraguay is not a major city. It's not a Mexico City. It's not a Buenos Aires. It's not a Medellin even. You know, it's not Rio. So the energy here is more chill and relaxed. And a pattern that I've seen here is that guys come here thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna relax and enjoy life. But then after a few months, you know, they go into the same restaurants, the same malls, the same routines, the same zone, same coffee shops. And then if you don't have much going on, like again, if you're not working on anything significant to you, boredom can set in pretty fast. And that's why I always say that Paraguay is who I think Paraguay is great for. It's amazing for people who are building. Whether it's a skill, whether it's a business, it's great for people with families, but guys building businesses, content creators, remote workers, because there's fewer distractions here. This is where you can really grow what you're building to lock in. Like I've basically been locked in these past 10 months here without much distraction. But if you want excitement all the time, I mean, I think there is enough things to do out here, you know, to not get completely bored. But this probably won't be your place long term. And I've literally seen people say, yeah, I'm just bored. And they end up going somewhere, either a bigger city or somewhere in Southeast Asia, and end up leaving just for that reason. Point number 6 is that the weather is more extreme than what most people think. Okay, you probably heard about the hot summers, right? The brutal summers here can get over 40 degrees Celsius, can get over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And a lot of foreigners, a lot of Americans simply can't handle that aspect alone long term. Because especially if you're outside a lot, if you don't work from home, if you're not under AC, like getting stuff done, then the heat can be pretty brutal. The other side of this is that winters can actually get pretty cold here as well. You know, I've heard people say that they're surprised by how cold it gets here. Recently, we're in May right now. We're still in May right now. I'm not sure when this video is gonna get published, but early May, you know, we're not even in wintertime yet. Temperatures have dropped below 15 degrees Celsius, sometimes around 10 degrees Celsius, which is around, you know, low 50s, maybe even dropping below 50s at times. And we're not even in the winter yet. Like once June, July, August comes around, it's gonna get even colder than that. So definitely no longer t-shirt weather, even though some days it does get pretty hot where it is t-shirt weather still in May. But I think that the winters here, you know, people say, oh, the winter's perfect. It's like perfect weather. No, it gets pretty cold here during the wintertime. You will need to be in jackets, maybe hats. And honestly, I prefer more summer, more spring-like or summer-like weather. So I can tolerate the summers, and I can also tolerate the winters. But honestly, there are much better countries and much better cities that offer much better weather. So if weather is high on your list in terms of like quality of life aspects, then you'll probably prefer a country like Colombia where you can get whatever you want year-round, perfect weather, or maybe places in Mexico like a Guadalajara where it's perfect weather, even places in South America. There are a lot more countries, a lot more cities that offer much better weather than Asuncion. And I think that when you combine extreme heat, unexpected cold winters, long travel distances, you know, emotional isolation, slower pace of life, it's easier to understand why most Americans choose other countries over Paraguay and ultimately choose places that are more common, such as Colombia or Mexico or Brazil, or even Central America like Costa Rica or Nicaragua or Guatemala over a place like Paraguay. So that's it for this video, guys. And look, despite everything that I said here, I still think Paraguay is a great place for the right type of guy. But I also think that a lot of people romanticize moving abroad and living in Paraguay without fully understanding the trade-offs that come along with it long term. And if you've made it this far into the video, you're probably seriously considering Paraguay as maybe a place you want to visit or even maybe move to or at least check out. So I am someone who did make Paraguay my base, and I got residency here, cedula, bank accounts. So if you want to learn more how you can do the same exact thing, then check out my Paraguay residency checklist where I share step-by-step what you need to do and also what bank account you can open up as soon as you get your cedula. If you want to work with my residency specialist, then links in the description for that as well. Or if you just want to watch similar videos to this one, then check out the one that I did on why most people struggle living in Paraguay long term. You can watch it right here, and I'll see you there.